Hello, everybody. Happy History Hump Day. On Wednesday, skipped a few days again. Skipped Science Sunday and Philosophy Friday again. But you know what? Busy times, but we gotta stick with history. History is the most interesting. But I kind of miss studying philosophy and science a little bit. So maybe, hopefully, if I have time, I can get back into it. But we are reading this book again, The Dawn of Everything. Still not made it that far. This is how far I've made it. So, I don't know. It's going slow, but you know what? It's very interesting. We are literally on chapter 3. So, hey, that's an accomplishment. It's called Unfreezing the Ice Age, chapter 3. And now they're finally talking about humans. Well, we were talking about humans the whole time, but not just like, looking at the Europeans versus the indigenous versus the hunter-gatherer people. Now they're talking about humans as a whole. Okay. So, so we have, obviously these people believe in millions of years and evolution and like early primate people, which I don't believe in that. I think the Bible's right, but it's interesting they talk about how the idea of having something prehistory before, like, I don't know, 200,000 years ago or 3 million years ago or whatever, where they think humans kind of started. They say that's a modern idea because before that, everyone just kind of agreed with what the Bible says about how we all started off in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. And then with the Tower of Babel, we dispersed and grew from there. And that was only like, they say late October 4004 BC. That's when humans started. And ever since then, it's been the same. Although there's still some things that I can learn, even though I agree with the Bible version, there's things I can learn from this. But it's interesting because if everybody believed the Bible version before the 19th century, that we all just came from Adam and Eve, and then all of a sudden we have this modern view of like, actually, the world was this many millions of years old, and we can study, but also we don't have any, like, we don't really know how the humans were. This is what they're saying. We don't have much of how those humans were, supposedly, that existed before, like millions of years ago. So why not just keep believing what they believed before the 19th century? Why not just believe in the Bible? It would make more sense to me, but I don't know, it's still cool to listen to. It's cool to hear their perspective. And the difference between, we talked about Hobbesian hawks versus Rousseau, the French guy who believed that we were all innocent, equality before, when we were hunter-gatherers. So Hobbesian hawks versus Rousseauian doves, how's that pronounced? I don't know how you pronounce that. Whatever. You know what I mean. Hawks, where we're all innately evil and hierarchical and wanting power and power hungry, which I tend to agree with Hobbes on that. Or Rousseau, we were all innocent and then we became power hungry because of civilization, which made us more greedy and power hungry, which I am too. We all are, okay? But they found evidence that the early humans, which they're like, oh, this is like 50,000 BC, this is 45,000 BC, or 45, yeah. And I'm like, how do you know that? What? You're just like, I'm pretty sure this was from this time. Okay. I mean, they probably have some sort of way of finding out, but I don't know. But they find that along with the woolly mammals, which they assume happened many years ago, probably millions of years ago, I don't know. They think, which again, I disagree with, but they find that there's like people with axes. There's like axes that had to be made from the cavemen. So they're like, obviously humans were way back then. It could be that we just lived with those animals like 4,000 years ago in the Job times. In Job, when he talks about the big dinosaur thing with a cedar-like tail, whatever that creature was. But anyway, while the technology we are capable of bringing to bear on such remote periods improves dramatically each decade, there's only so much you can do with sparse material. As a result, it's difficult to resist the temptation to fill in the gaps, to claim we know more than we really do. So they're saying we don't know much about these supposed pre-human whatever people that probably didn't exist because we don't know much about them. But of course, the idea is that they just weren't smart enough, or they didn't think through like writing things down and having, you don't see much culture. So there's this in between, this paradox they call it, in between the, I don't know, the humans, when they were inspired, these humans were like, I don't know, you could tell that they still had some sort of culture. There was still something outside of them. They were political in nature, according to this guy named Christopher Bain, I think his name was. Where was that? This is all like mushed together in my mind. Oh, have you heard of Paleolithic? That's like there's the Upper Paleolithic, which they say is 50,000 to 15,000 BC. That's the later humans. That's when we start to get like culture, which again was probably only 4,000 BC. And then so they're saying that there must be this time period before that of hundreds of thousands of BCs ago that they claim. And we see that, I don't know, they would like divide up the elephant meat with each other, and like it's inherent for humans to bully, for animals to bully each other, but what makes us human and different is that we have counter-bullying. That's what this Christopher Bain is talking about, how we're different. So it's kind of a mix between Hobbes and Rousseau, I guess. We can be evil, but we can also choose to be good, and that's what makes us human. I kind of like that, even though, obviously, as a Christian, I would put a God spin on it. Always got to add God into it. Hey, that's what you do. That's what you got to do. That it's God that makes us choose to do good, I guess, even though we're inherently evil. I don't know, but that's an interesting take from Christopher Bain, that we are not inherently really anything. It's just kind of whatever we decide. We are whatever we decide to be. We have examples of the counterbullying or the dividing up of the meat, which makes us inherently political creatures. Oh yeah, that was kind of at the end that they talked about this. Also, they said this, we think right now that humans are so different from each other. And apparently, well, this is a little different than how the Bible would describe it. But we are actually, according to them, we were way different from each other. Like maybe some humans had fur, maybe some... Okay, that's probably a little out there. Okay, you guys think we're the weird one? You think people who believe, like, you still believe in the Bible? What? You still believe in the 6,000-year-old earth? Okay, but you think that we're hairy apes and stuff. That's a little weird. But they're like, the differences between humans were way, way different. Like almost like hobbits versus elves. Almost to that degree. And that would be cool if that were true. Even in the Bible, though, there were some creatures that we thought were like giants, which is interesting. Like, what are they called? The Nephilim, which apparently some people think are angels mixed with humans. So there were probably, I mean, even after the Tower of Babel, if you believe in the Bible, after the Tower of Babel, we all dispersed and we all became very different from one another. And maybe now we're becoming a lot closer together because of connections, because of because of more civilization, social media. Probably we become a lot more alike. So we're not as different as we think, people. Why can't we all just get along? It's so easy. But it would be cool if back in the day, they are saying that all humans were way different, and then we've gotten more similar. I would say we were all, from Adam and Eve, we were the same, but then we dispersed at the Tower of Babel, but now we're starting to become the same again. I don't know. I wasn't there, okay? By the way, there's people who believe in the Bible. When I say the Bible, like some people think it's metaphorical, which is fair. I don't agree with that, but basically I'm saying people who believe in the literal interpretation of Genesis versus people who don't, whether they're Christian or not. But for thousands of years, we've always just assumed it was whatever the Bible said. So why don't we just stick with that? I don't know. But whether or not you believe in the literal Genesis or the evolution, whatever, everyone came from Africa. So we're all Africans. According to this book, they said that we're all Africans, which is interesting. So find your inner African, because that's where we all belong. And the people who live, that's why the people who live in Africa, the Africans right now, they're better than everybody because they have the original food that we're supposed to eat, the closest you get to the food we're supposed to eat, the lives we're supposed to live. They have the best physiques. They have the best jawlines, the best teeth, the best structures, and they have the best communities. And that's why when you move to Africa, away from this modern world, where this modern technology that makes us weak, if you move to Africa, you become a better person, physically, spiritually if it's Christian, which there's a lot of Christians in Africa, and emotionally, they have better family connections. They have better humor. They're dancing and singing, and they're always happy. So, not that life is all about being happy, but it kind of is. Basically, and they still have a lot of suffering, but they're still happy all the time. It seems like, at least in the pictures. So, that's really ultimately what we're supposed to be. So we should all find our inner African and try to be more what we were originally supposed to be, like Adam and Eve, created literally in the Garden of Eden, which was likely in Africa. So they were most likely African. And that's what we need to all try to be more like that. That's why you hear people who move to Africa and they just end up staying there if they really get immersed into it. Now, am I going to move? No, because I'm weak and lazy and I like my modern technology that makes me weak. So, but maybe I should. I think you would become a happier person if you move to Africa, even though there's a lot of hardship there. But it's character building. It's character building. So, but yeah, that's interesting that they say that we all came from Africa. Christians also say we all came from Africa, most likely from the Garden of Eden. But when we were, according to this book, coming from Africa, it was like different parts of Africa, not just one spot like the Garden of Eden. So they're like, there's still like a metaphorical Garden of Eden according to these guys, like some place that we started. Was it perfect or was it not? We don't really know. According to them, obviously I would say it was perfect. And there was a literal Garden of Eden and a literal Adam and Eve. But they're like, oh, there's like a metaphorical Eve of like the ancestor. They talked about that too, but I can't really remember. I don't know. There's so many like details and it's hard to remember everything. Even though I only read 10 pages, it's hard to remember everything. Anyway, that's as far as I got. I probably forgot a lot, but you know what? I will add it to the next video if I remember. Thank you for watching. Thanks for studying history. We can find out what we're supposed to be. This is what we are meant to be. Go back to wherever it started. Most likely what Genesis says literally. But maybe Genesis is metaphorical. But the Bible's definitely true. But anyway, study it for yourself and see what you think.